should form a partnership because each has what the other respectively needs.
Germany plus India for the world.
Purpose is driving many of us.
When it comes to mobility, obviously it's a big transformation happening at the moment globally.
When we're looking at infrastructure, I don't find India and Germany to be very different.
Hi everyone, welcome to Build with Shreya. Today we are at the GIIC, which is happening at the GIIC, which is an amazing venue near Brandenburg Gates. And we have a really good line of guests today who we're talking to in depth around innovation that's going to happen with the Indo-German partnership coming along in more of a phygital sense. So we have Irene from Neurospace, we have Daniel, we have Utkarsh from Drona Maps, Ankit from IdeaForge, Bettina from Edico, and Axel from Bosch Group. So let's see what this day brings us. And it's a little bit challenging for me because there's an event going on. I'm trying to do this, but let's see. What are the kind of goals that GIIC is having?
I mean, why did we do the summit is pretty straightforward. At the end, the summit is a stage and a gateway and a stepping stone to a bigger mission. And the mission is about Germany plus India for the world, which means Germany and India should form a partnership because each has what the other respectively needs. But it's not just about those two countries to strengthen their bonds, to have better business relationships, to have better political relationships, but it's about what those two countries could do together for the world. Now the question is, in which world do we want to live 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And who are our partners? And are we relevant 10 years from now? Now, India, without question, will be relevant because India is on the rise. The best years of India are yet to come. And therefore, the question to Germany is, can be and do we want to be a partner of India on this journey? And our answer is clearly yes. That's the opportunity. That's the opportunity that Germany, and I say that as a German, that Germany needs to act now, needs to do now, needs to feel the sense of urgency now, that actually in order to stay competitive, to stay relevant, over the next 10, 15, 20 years and into the future, we need to find the right partners. That's why we brought those decision makers together, 300 decision makers, 150 from India, 150 from Germany, in order to create this first circle of believers, and from there create a ripple effect, create more believers, because it takes a lot of shoulders to carry this mission. If Germany plus India becomes a reality, Germany plus India for the world, creating a corridor that has a global impact and creates economic prosperity, innovation leadership, and geopolitical stability in a world that is more challenging, then that is a massive endeavor.
And when you look at whatever happened in the last 100 years, it's very interesting. If we do not define our own future, someone else is going to define us by using the past data, and I'm not sure if that's super exciting either for India or for Germany. I think what we have to do is use a proactive approach to shape the next decade. Now, what's challenging with the next decade? Challenging thing is whatever has happened in the last 100 years can actually happen in the next 10 years because of the exponentiality at which the technology is impacting the lives, the normal human lives, and the change that is being brought up. Germany plus India for the world. Which world are we talking about? The world that is going to be immensely connected, the world that's going to look at immensely sharing what we have, the world that is going to need completion more than competition. And that's where you team up based on skills.
So exciting, open innovation platform, the German-Indian open innovation platform. And then, of course, we are open as much for whatever opportunities arise and the need is there. No?
Absolutely, Jan. I think we need to spread that message and invite participation. We are open for your participation into this both ways. Number one, bring in your problem. So you ask me, how can I contribute as a corporate, as a business? you have set of challenges. Let's not call it problems. Challenges and opportunity. So you have opportunity areas that you can bring on this platform. You have solutions that you know. You can bring the solutions on this platform and say, okay, let's plug this in. And build with Shreya, watch this platform, because this is where a lot of the innovators and are going to come on this podcast. They're going to share their ideas. We are happy to, and maybe some of our projects are going to be highlighted on Build with Shreya as well. So let's build it. Let's build it together.
So, Bettina, I keep thinking about how work has changed. It's no more about just what we do. It's also about what it means to us, how we identify, what is valuable to us. So I want to understand a little bit about your journey and what it means to you.
Well, thank you for your interest in my journey. And indeed, it's one of those classical ones where, had you asked me 30 years ago, would I be sitting here today having this conversation with you? I for sure would not have been able to anticipate it. But what I always knew for my journey is that I wanted to be linked to the world of politics, because my understanding is that our daily lives are driven by the frameworks that politics build for us and make for us. And what I also, from a very, very early age, was convinced in is that we can co-create those frameworks. And that very often, I guess, politicians, if you want to generalize, or bureaucrats, well, they rely on experts from society, from academia, from the private sector to feed them with information so that those frameworks can be co-created. So my path is one of interest in politics for the right reasons, again, in order to create a better society and a better environment for people. But I really didn't actually start in that whole labor market environment. I was active in a few other industries and landed up in the workforce solutions or the private employment services industry more by coincidence. And if I can maybe pick up a comment or the comment you made, you're right that purpose is driving many of us. But you know what? Actually, it's the lucky ones of us, because for many, many people, work is still about really, well, paying the bills, of course, and making sure that you get food on the table. And so that question of purpose is a luxury to some extent. So I recognize, of course, the question, and I know there's a whole societal and a whole generational element behind it, but I also want to recognize that it's actually the question that a few privileged among us can ask themselves.
So if we just sort of take a more specific approach towards India and Germany collaboration. So in terms of policy design for easy transfer of skills, for migration, for a opportunity-rich global workforce, what are your ideas there?
Look, they're not groundbreaking, and the ideas, they're all there. What is needed is the political will. And then with the political will is also the understanding that there's an inclusion discourse and an inclusion narrative that needs to happen. And that seems difficult in some countries right now. I am a Swiss citizen, so I feel in no position to comment, of course, on any specific German or Indian political agenda, but prioritizing that exchange of talent and ensuring again that the frameworks are conducive and positive towards that will be beneficial for both countries.
So you have led some of the most powerful rooms in the world, rooms that are not only difficult to enter, but also having a voice heard, right? So what is your advice to young leaders, especially women, who want to make a change, want to have their voice heard, not just be the ones who are there on the table, but who also are part of what is actually discussed there?
Well, first of all, kudos if you're sitting at the table. Then already you've actually made the biggest step, right? Because in the biggest usually part, it's a matter of finding your seat. Then, of course, you're right. I mean, should you just sit there and stay silent and say nothing? I must say there is a big power in listening as well. And this will lead me to what I would like to answer to you today, which is exactly that: listen and identify what the problem is that is being discussed at the table. And if not at the entire table, but the problem that you have identified one of the stakeholders has at the table. And then the likelihood that the fact that you're there means that you have one of the solutions is very high. But then be very specific and present yourself as a solution provider to what is on the table, and that will grab the attention of whoever is sitting there.
So when you talk about industrial innovation, especially in the area of mobility and industrial engineering, how do you see it going beyond the buzzword? How do you see it really being transformative to the core level?
So my role at Bosch Business Innovations is not very close to home, if you don't mind me saying, meaning I'm not very much involved into Bosch core business. My role is building the startups and spin-offs out of Bosch that would create the products of the day after tomorrow. So when it comes to mobility, obviously it's a big transformation happening at the moment globally. But this, for example, is an area where I'm not even active. I'm thinking about what comes beyond mobility.
You see more such collaborations being supported by the infrastructure in general when it comes to Indian and German entities involved. You see that kind of infrastructure existing outside of Bosch, and what do you think will take to have more such collaborations overall within the two countries?
Excellent question. I think this event is a good start. Right? Well, I see there is a lot of, let's say, mobility on a personal level. But this kind of mobility, I don't see too much on an IP or capital level. So we need the movement of all these things, ideas, people, capital, at the same time. We need to accelerate this movement and become more strategic and structured. At the moment, I mean, Bosch has been in India present for more than 100 years. It is a well-established business relationship between India and Germany within Bosch. In fact, India is, I believe, the only Bosch company globally that is a listed company.
So, as you mentioned, an example of an Indian startup within Bosch sort of relocating to Germany. Do you also see examples of companies in Germany relocating to India? Do you see a possibility of that? And if yes, then in what kind of way can you imagine that?
I believe in Germany, for example, we're very strong in traditional sectors like healthcare, medical technology, and I could see easily business being moved to India out of Germany. Why? Because especially when it comes to in healthcare, when it comes to personalization and basically softwareization, this is where India could be come into play. So in this area, I see a lot of potential to go the other way.
It's an attempt to eliminate surprise and detect the defects before they become the disaster, right? So if you can tell us a little bit about your journey, what made you start Drona Maps, and how did you find the problem statement to work with?
I went to Johns Hopkins for studying computer science and specialized in computer integrated surgery. At the time, while Hopkins has a very big med school focus, my faculty advisor, Dr. Ben Langmaid, was actually one of the genetics professor at school. We ended up working on some experiments and some courses where we were, for the first time in my life, I was exposed to utilizing large servers to be able to process the genetic data and on the human genome project, the 6 billion base pair long human genome project, and then being able to search and splice and do all of those things with the genomic data. So I think that was very curious, that was very interesting, because the way that we were utilizing these servers for the first time in my life, I was very fascinated that there is a machine that would be running for a week, 5 to 7 days at 100% CPU, and it would have maybe a terabyte of RAM. And I had never in my life seen a terabyte of RAM before. So I became very, very fascinated with systems that were so large that you could quite literally not even open them on your laptop. You would require absolutely massive, humongous servers to be able to do that. So that's what caught the fancy. From there, I started working on some other technologies like photogrammetry. And Johns Hopkins again ends up being the inventing institute of a very key technology in the space called Poisson surface reconstruction, and by a professor in the CS department itself, Dr. Kazdan. So with through those exposures, I think I ended up building up or deciding rather that what I want to do with the rest of my life after college, and then coming back to be able to build up companies and technologies which basically took us into a scaled up journey of deep tech, being able to bring the deep tech out from the lab and out into the world. So I think that's where the inspiration came from. That's where the humble beginnings of Drona Maps kind of started off, with the deep tech and the learnings and the curve that we started doing.
So during COVID-19, Drona Maps actually created command centers for state governments. And so how did the accuracy and the speed of your geospatial platform help the authorities manage the crisis in a better fashion?
So in COVID, actually, we were not so much focusing on the 3D photogrammetry aspect of things, but we were doing a lot of maps and the disease spread analytics. So we were core into epidemiology domain at that time. The idea was that Johns Hopkins, actually our alma mater, had launched a global COVID dashboard. So when we started visiting, when we started speaking to our clients at the time, they said that, okay, maybe you can take inspiration from that and build up something which is much more Indian, much more specific over here. So we ended up building that. Then we also worked with Johns Hopkins to be able to, get some cross data back into it, and with the University of Oxford and with IIT Madras, the director Dr. Kamakoti. So when we integrated all of these technologies, what we ended up with was live tracking of oxygen trucks, which was a very big crisis at the time of COVID second wave in India. We were tracking the disease spread of COVID-19, as well as mucormycosis, the black fungus that took over. And so being able to do the R naught and disease epidemic analysis and spread analytics across different populations in a district center, for instance, Jalandhar, if it has the disease spread out only in the town, only in the ULB, the urban local body, or rather has it gone out to the entire district of nearly 2000 square kilometers of area? So where does lockdown need to be imposed? Because you want to cause the minimum amount of disruption to the citizenry, at the same time have the maximum effectiveness from the administration. So being able to do analytics like this, which were geospatial in nature, which were very, very particular, down to the last person that was being affected, being able to track their movements, enforce quarantines, being able to ensure that oxygen supply and treatments for mucormycosis were reaching on time and effectively across the entire states. So we did about 11 states at peak at the time. And so across all of these states, we were doing all of these analytics and giving all of this data to the authorities in charge.
And so, what lessons from this experience do you think can drive global urban resilient programs, and especially when talking about Germany and India, smart infrastructure programs? So, what are your 2 cents from this experience, and how do you think that kind of a partnership can come into fruition?
So we believe in analytics, right? We believe in data. The more the data, the better the decision making from any context. In that sense, when we're looking at infrastructure, I don't find India and Germany to be very different in that aspect.
see.
When we look at national highways, for instance, the Indian expressways, the Delhi Mumbai expressway, the Yamuna expressway, the Bangalore Chennai expressway, have very similar road quality conditions, contracts, the nature of the concession, and the materials being used similar to the Autobahn in Germany. very similar architectures, very similar design standards, very similar quality parameters, and very similar usage by the users of the road. So what we can do to be able to very minutely analyze all of these areas, all of these infrastructure projects, very different, different economies, different countries, but still engineering and civil engineering being the same, being able to work across all of these technical standards, being able to deliver on that. So I think that's the key that we are trying to drive. To your point, specifically between Germany and India, the interplay that we are able to see, there's a huge market. So far, Drona Maps has been operating with in the B2G space, but there's a huge market in the B2B space for these infrastructure projects, because at the end of the day, there's some private player which is making roads. Like in Europe, Acciona is a very big player which is developing a lot of infrastructure across nearly 20-25 odd countries. So being able to work with companies like that to be able to manage their assets, being able to map them repeatedly in centimeter scale 3D, delivering those insights and automated analytics, reducing the time cost of human labor being deployed. So in this current age of AI, the way I look at it is we should eliminate any forms of hard labor to the extent possible by utilizing advanced technology like AI, robots, drones, and all of these things. It will not just increase our actionability on the materials and the environment that we interact with, it will make it more sustainable, it will make it more advanced, and it will repurpose us. Because at the end of the day, the person who has to make the decisions with all of this data is the human.
For India, drones actually went from being just a prototype to national scale implementations in record time with builders like you. So, if you can run us through your journey and what made you get into it, first of all, and reach where it is now, especially with our Idea Forge.
Idea Forge started as a company a little bit later, but drones as a domain started for us in 2004 when we built our first prototype of a four rotor drone, or as it is popularly called, a quadcopter drone. So that's how we got into the domain, and for a few years we were developing the nuts and bolts of the technology. In 2007, we made our first autopilot, which is 2 years before the open source ecosystem created an autopilot. And we essentially, after 26/11 in 2008, the attacks on Mumbai, decided that we need to take all of this development and create a product out of it that can help our forces, that can help our country. And that's how the journey began. And since then, we have been promoting this technology to make sure that it is available to our end users in the form of a capability that can help them solve the problems of doing last mile surveillance, reconnaissance, or intelligence gathering. So that's the domain we have worked extensively on. And now we are moving towards a lot more diversified domains as well.
So, in drone technology, policies play a very major role in whether innovation really flies or falls, right? And with the new drone policy that has come in, do you think it has accelerated the way startups can now, develop and grow in the ecosystem, or there's still some barriers that are there that need to be looked at from a policy standpoint?
From a policy standpoint, see, the rules that were there that came in 2021, they have been actually very helpful in creating a ecosystem. But as is usual, like if the policy is open, the implementation is a little bit less, it's lagging behind, right? So I think a little bit more has to be done to accelerate the implementation, to make sure that the processes are meeting the desired intent of the policy and not following a path which is holding them back for no explicable reason in that one sense. So there are those nuances of implementation that need to be perfected. But yes, I think overall the regulations have been good. Of course, there is a new draft drone bill that has come out. We have to see what happens to that policy if it comes out ever.
Now, if we talk about international collaboration, especially as we are at GIIC today, so German India collaboration, how do you think platforms like these can help the domain that you are in to build a more robust, more sturdy, more ecosystem for both the countries included?
So I think it's fascinating, and I was having this chat earlier during the event that if you look at what IdeaForge represents, and I'm just giving that as an example, we have a passion for creating high performance, reliable, resilient, and in autonomous drones, right? We want to build for all of these four vectors so that when we go to a customer, they get more work done every flight, they get more number of flights, they can operate anywhere, and they can operate in adverse conditions like the conditions that are prevalent today, particularly in battlefields in the world. And of course, you need autonomy so that it does not create that much of a training burden for the customer to adopt the technology for their use. And if you look at what Germany is known for, Germany is known for high performance technology, it is known for reliable technology. All of it is very complementary to what we are already working on or are gunning for insofar as what we are doing here at UForge. And therefore, I see that kind of synergy wherever we encounter a piece of technology that has the backing from this side of the world, or it is something which, if we are presented with an opportunity, can be leveraged as a program or a project, we would be very, excited about taking it up because it has that promise built in to the engineering approach itself.
So, when we talk about innovation and cross border innovation, how do you think German and Indian firms can accelerate innovation when it comes to dual technology, AI, or specifically to manufacturing?
Germany has been associated with good hardware. And if you look at India, we've been associated with software, right? So, in a way, there is that potential collaboration that can happen where the two countries can come together and innovate aggressively. But on the other side, we are building good hardware capabilities given the time, energy, and legacy we have spent building it. And we are approaching it with a slightly different DNA. So that is again something which is very useful and effective. In the end, collaboration can happen between the two countries and or entities between the two countries where you are taking the context of a specific domain and you're applying intelligence to it. So it could be both ways, right? Their platforms can gain from the use cases that we are developing in India, and they could be co-created, or Indian systems, Indian technology can be co-opted to solve some of the problems here. And that's the bilateral exchange that I expect to happen more effectively.
What was your motivation, like especially starting in this domain? Was it because you had done enough research in the domain, or what problem statement were you actually looking at when you started the company?
I was actually dreaming of it since I was a child. So space was something I really wanted to go to. And so I managed, even when I was doing the research for gallium nitride, to be in projects which were space dependent. So it was gallium nitride for space. So I was very happy there. And then managed to find startups which were really doing space hardware. And this was a dream. They allowed me to go to the launch site, to the rockets, and test and mount the devices inside. And so I was standing on the upper stage of a rocket. This was so inspiring and so great. And this was, for example, in Russia, which was so historical, in Baikonur, where Yuri Gagarin was actually launching. And I was like, wow, I saw his house even there. And I wanted to follow on that. So I worked for these companies for 5 years and then decided to get more independent, to go into different directions. And so I founded my company at the end.
So when we talk about space technology, it is very hard to innovate in isolation. So how do you think platforms like GIIC can help foster better partnerships for innovation in space technology?
I think it's always good to that more people and audience can hear what you're doing, because some of the people didn't even have the idea that this type exists. And the rest is always like, it will start from its own. So people will be there and have listened to it and then remember something else, talk to someone else who said, actually, I was looking for something like this. So it's very interesting where at the end this will lead to. But for me, I see meanwhile there is this huge opportunity for Asia, even for Africa as well. And I think it's very important to deal with this, especially India as a country. And I think especially in Germany, they see more and more opportunities for India or with India. And that's why for me it was very interesting to participate here.
So when more and more women start getting involved in spaces like aerospace and space technology, it's not just who's at the table that's changing, but also what's being discussed. So what is your perspective on what women bring to leadership roles in your industry and your area of expertise?
So I think there are two things which have to be marked out here. One thing is that actually we as women get less respect because we are too careful in the way we are talking and discussing and negotiating. So one thing I have learned in the past is to get really confident. If you want to talk with men and have to negotiate, you have to be very confident, you have to be very prepared. And you have to accept, which actually women are not taught from the beginning on, that people might not like you anymore. So you have to get rid of this, that everyone should love you. This is not the thing. It is okay that people don't like you at the end. And you have to accept it, because this is not about that. Okay, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be the only one or whatever. This is actually, it's important that you have to be confident. You have to be well prepared, and you have to accept that people don't like you. And the second thing is, of course, we as women have our own quality, which is like, we have our own way of determination. And like, we don't give up so fast. And we manage, even though we don't get a lot of support, still to keep up things. And I have the feeling those female founders I know, they have a lot of patience. And this is important. So it is okay. It takes time. So you have to be patient. Don't give up. And the quality which we bring then at the end is that we are female. We look different, we act different. We don't have to imitate the males. We don't have to be like them. We don't have to look like them. But we are there in our own way. And actually, there is no difference. The difference is that we make it on our own. We try to put in differences.
Yeah, I think it's our own acceptance that needs to come in.
Yes.
That we are like this. This is how we function.
Yes.
This is how we are, and this is how we're going to show up in the world. Since we are here for GIIC, what does this platform mean to you, and how do you think it can bring a difference to how people are innovating right now, both in India as well as in Germany?
Thank you for having me. GIIC is a platform meant to help both countries that have a lot in common to see these topics we have in common and to elaborate and to grow on this. This is the meaning, and to connect decision makers, to connect people who usually won't met.
So how would you like to tell this story, and tell us a little bit about yourself, about your journey so far, and what is your vision for this kind of collaboration coming into picture? And if you were to tell the story, how would you go about telling it?
The story of the GIIC is it's a story of starting from a napkin, as one of the organizers told. As a crazy idea, let's do this, and it brought us until today with around 300 very motivated people. But we are right at the start. It's a quite easy thing. What we want to do, we want to connect people. So it's the easiest thing on Earth. But sometimes it's hard, especially for smaller and medium-sized companies, to do the first step. And one of the speakers said just a few minutes ago, he said, it's not always starting with what you are doing, start with what can I do for you? So that's hard, I think, for a lot of companies, business owners. It's hard to change this perspective.
So if you were to explain in one word about GIIC, just one word, and you just look in the camera and just say the word. That's it.
Future-proofing partnerships.
Opportunity.
I would say reliable.
Sky is the limit.